Okay, welcome everybody to March Homegrown Scientists. This is an event that is hosted by Advancing Women in Science, a UNM student group, and I am Stephanie Fox. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the president of Advancing Women in Science. And this year we have this awesome speaker series going on where we are interviewing a variety of people who are from the Southwest primarily and have done their undergraduate degrees at the University of New Mexico and are doing cool stuff now. Today we are with Alyshia and Gabrielle. Just before I turn it over to them, I just want to remind you, please, if you can turn on your camera, if you want to turn on your camera, feel free so that Gabrielle and Alyshia have somebody to talk to. I will put the contact information for Advancing Women in Science into the chat just after I'm done talking here. Hi, Tabitha. And that way, if you want to get on our listserv, if you're not already on it, you can send us an email at awsunm@unm.edu and ask to get on our listserv. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter that you can follow us on. We now have a YouTube channel featuring all of our talks from this speaker series, which is pretty cool. If you missed any of them, they're all awesome. And so I'll put the link to that YouTube channel and the link in the chat as well. And last, I just want to say thank you to the departments who have sponsored this speaker series. All of our speakers are paid to be here, and I'm very excited about that. So we have sponsorship from the Earth and Planetary Sciences Department, Anthropology Department, Biology Department, and Psychology Department. I think with that, I will turn it over and Gabrielle is going to start.
Hello all, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here with Alyshia and all the other presenters in this Advancing Women in Science Homegrown Scientist series. I want to start off by expressing my gratitude to the University of New Mexico Psychology Department for sponsoring my spot here. I'm going to try and follow a linear path of my tertiary, post-secondary studies, but knowing me, I'll probably bounce around and reference things and probably drop in some stuff after in the Q&A. So homegrown, I was born in Orange County, California, but I'm from North Central New Mexico, you feel me? Yeah. And so I came up through the Bernalillo public school system in Sandoval County. This area is an occupied Tiwa land on the Rio Grande between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, if anyone needs a reference. Life before New Mexico, or UNM, University of New Mexico, that's relevant for this presentation, was high school. Oh, high school, that was like such a long time ago, but what I do remember was that I was not really thinking about college. It was something that kind of loomed and seemed inevitable, but at the same time also inaccessible in my sphere. I don't really have too many people that went to college, much less graduated. So I was lacking that resource. Culturally, if you're not breaking your back to earn, you don't deserve it. So that's kind of normalized. That's a whole separate talk for another time, but coming from that knowledge base, here in New Mexico, we have wonderful legislative lottery scholarship, which I'm very proud of and thankful for because it is accessible for our undocumented peers as well. And that's a huge draw to stay in state to study, even though I had no direction on what I was going to study. Thankfully, I had a friend who had taken dual credit courses and knew how to navigate the system that I essentially latched onto them to teach me how to college. And so my experience here at the University of New Mexico, I floated around during my first 2 semesters doing the core requirements, try to get a feel for some of the courses. And my first summer term, I was looking to fill the schedule because I'm an 18 units or bust type of person every semester. And I enrolled in a Psych 101 course, and it fit into a time slot. And in that course, I found myself being able to explore and ask questions in a way that some of my previous courses had not challenged me. And so it was something special for me. And from there, I enrolled in more and more classes, finally declaring as a major. And at that same time, I was taking some geology courses because I want to learn all the things, and this was the time to do that. But put that on pause as I was attending a satellite campus, and they didn't have upper division courses offered there. But life was great. I was full-fledged first gen, high accelerating, achieving student. But then something had happened outside of school, and I went from being the dean's list one semester to failing in C's the following semester. It was so hard, but because I was on track to graduate early with double major honors, all the works, to sitting in a scholarship office crying because personal problems would cause me to lose my scholarships and grants and all that, and derail all these goals and aspirations I had or whatever. So I took a much needed hiatus, and when it was time to come back, I was met with a new challenge, imposter syndrome. And it was a mixture of me constantly looking around saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm here. Like, so proud that I returned as a non-traditional student now. And on the other side, doubting myself that I even deserve to be here and all that. I'm still kind of dealing with that to a lesser degree, but once again, that's a whole other talk and research fair in academia. Um, and so now, at that point, had to declare a minor, and so with the soft sciences, if you will, psychology, um, it's something that is like less respected in a sense sometimes. Just we could explore that later, but and like for a Bachelor of Science of Psychology, the minor options are mostly hard sciences. And of those options, evolutionary anthropology was one of the options. And so I started taking courses there. And I think that just opened up a world for me because the anthropology department at UNM is amazing. And I was introduced to one of my mentors who's here, Adam Sid Reynolds, in the Human Family Evolutionary Demography Lab, and studied some research there, and that allowed me the opportunity to travel and present some of the research that I helped analyze. That department's headed by Dr. Siobhan Madison, and one of my lab mates, Sarah, is also here. Thank you for coming. And I also volunteered with Dr. Emery Thompson, who's also in that department. And so from there, I just branched out, and met a lot of people. And like, it wasn't until I was in my upper division studying with my minor that I really felt like I was studying in college. And so that was such a great opportunity. And if I were to give myself my freshman self advice, it would be like find mentors early on, or at least try and seek them out, keep looking. It was so impactful for me finishing strong, and then also meet people that you could study with. My pal Tabitha here, we studied together, and that was so impactful for me for studying and making good grades, and just like surrounding yourself with good people. Um, Currently now, I call myself a transitional student. So I graduated, but now I'm taking courses before I enroll in a professional school or grad school. So that's where I'm at now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you a few questions to follow up before we get to Alyshia? Um, I'm just curious to know how long you took off in the middle of your undergrad. Or was it the middle, or it sounded like you were quite close to graduation?
It was I would say the middle. I was probably junior year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it was 2.5 years, 2 years
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was needed. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you work outside of like during that time? Like outside of your sort of academic interests and everything?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
my family has a business, so I was kind of um there because it was kind of at the time it was what can you put on pause in your life for a while, and it was school that was put on pause, but my family relies on me a lot, so I was with
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Um, and then also you mentioned in your psychology class, like this sort of like interest that came up that you like just things that you were able to think about that you weren't really thinking about in other courses. And I'm just curious to pick your brain a little bit about like what those things were that got you excited.
Um, I will probably need to circle back around to that right quick, but yeah, I think it was just some of the ways that the way research was conducted and stuff like that, and maybe challenging that where it stands with the hard sciences as well. And so it was surrounding that. I would have to come back to that on like pinpointing an actual thing, but it was around that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Just curious. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Gabrielle.
You.
Um, and Alyshia, we will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay now? Is that better? Okay. I'll just hold it up. Hi, so I'm Alyshia Bustos. Thank you all for having me here. I'm really excited. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I grew up here. Really haven't ventured out of New Mexico at all. um, and also I guess growing up in Santa Fe, I was never introduced to like any kind of real science. At all. Like, I mean, besides like the regular science classes we take, in elementary, middle school, and high school, nobody ever kind of was like, this is, where women belong. And I never knew that like that I could have a job in any kind of like science field. And so it wasn't until college that I actually kind of like found my place. And funny enough, actually, I was a psychology major my freshman year. Because I got to college and I really had never thought about college either. I was like, I don't really want to. My parents went, but I was like, I don't want to do what they did. And it didn't really interest me. But they were like, no, you got to go. And so I was like, well, I like criminal minds kind of stuff, like how people think and like serial killers, I guess, like just the way, it drives people. And so I was like, psychology, like I get to like learn about people, why people do some of the stuff they do. And I still love psychology. But I don't know, was still feeling like really lost and like it wasn't like my place. Like I liked it, but I didn't like it enough that I wanted to like pursue anything in it. And so I kind of just like was taking random classes my freshman year, and one of my friends like encouraged me to take an engineering class, and I was like, I don't know, like those are going to be hard, and I was never really supported in taking harder classes like that, so I was kind of like, eh. But eventually I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. I'll do it. So I took an introductory programming class and completely fell in love with it, which I was like not expecting at all. And then I just kind of went off from there. I just finally just it was like, switch my major to computer science. I still took some psychology classes though, because I did still like it. I probably should have minored in it, but I think at the point I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I didn't really have much support. So I didn't really, I probably could have done that, but um, anyway, so I got into the computer science department at UNM. And at first, I'm not gonna lie, it was like pretty shaky. I didn't really know anybody. And it was like really intimidating because like most of my classes were just male dominated. And it was funny because I actually had a class with Ashley, but we had a math class together and we didn't even know we were in the same department for like a whole year. And then we finally had a class together and we were like, wait, what? You're here too? And so it was cool to finally like meet somebody else in the department, and that I could connect with and like have a friend group with. So that was nice. Yeah. So our math class, it was a lot. That math class kind of sucked, to be honest. But then, as I got further in my degree, I started meeting more people. And I think I'm very much an introvert, but I can be an extrovert when I have to be, sometimes. And I think I really had to like grow and learn to like get out of my comfort zone. And so like I joined different student orgs at UNM. to kind of push me to meet more people and do that. And that actually helped a lot, meeting new people like in my department and in other engineering departments. It helped me a lot just with like study groups. Like I studied a lot with Ashley in all of our classes and Randy here. And so it was nice to like kind of get those kind of bonds met. So I think that helped me a lot. Let's see. I don't know. I'm currently finishing my master's degree right now. So I'll graduate in May. And then I've been also working on my PhD research. So I'm going to be starting officially my PhD in the summer. And yeah, that's about it. As an intro.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyshia. Can you quickly tell us like what your research is about?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I still don't really know how to like categorize it. So it has like an educational piece, but also a computer science piece as well. So I work in the Dr. Beakley lab at UNM, and I'm working on this project. It's called the Interactive Mural. So the end goal is to make huge interactive murals around Albuquerque, and we're working with like a pretty like not she's not I guess she's like pretty famous in Albuquerque as like a muralist. Her name's Nani. I forgot her last name right now. But she's awesome, and she already has like a bunch of murals up in Albuquerque. And what we're gonna do is like we're gonna make them interactive. So we're gonna add like hardware components to it and like software components to it. But we're also going to be teaching underrepresented students in Albuquerque about, how to program these things and kind of introduce them to like hardware and software and kind of get them in high school and like maybe I don't know if they're middle schoolers, but I think they're for sure high schoolers. Try to introduce like computer science to them at a younger age, because I wish I had that. Like I wish I would have gotten into this sooner. But we want to kind of just show students that. So it's like education and then also hardware and software. So I'm doing like customized circuit boards right now as part of my research. Yeah,
that sounds super cool. Thank you very much, both of you, for introducing yourselves and for being here and for sharing your stories with us. I will turn it over to the audience for questions.
Okay, so you both did psychology and you both went a different direction. And as somebody who did both, I just want to know sort of more about like Gabrielle, you were more focused, you like psychology, you majored in it sounds like, and then you minored in anthropology. And Alyshia, you like psychology and then you dumped it out a window, which I've had opinions on the whole time. But like what how do you feel that sort of like how do you feel like your relationship with like and the reason I ask this is like psychology 101 and like 105 and whatever is like a course that like everyone takes and everybody has an opinion on it. And like how do you kind of think that like sort of introductory relationship with psychology sort of had you helped you get to where you are? Just because like not everybody is going to take like intro to computer science because it's not a credit that applies to everything like Psych 105 does. So that's my question.
So I would say, well, I think taking psychology, like like the course that they make you take, I absolutely loved it, even though, it was a requirement, I still really enjoyed it. And unfortunately, like, I mean, the reason I couldn't like do like a double major or anything like that was just because I had other time constraints outside of school. So I could only really do one major, but honestly, I think it helped just kind of set the platform of like being able to see that there's like other jobs that you can do like within psychology and just like having women in science. And then I also took, I can't remember a few other psychology classes I took, but they I think also contributed to just like helping me kind of get the confidence and like knowing that there's like women scientists out there. And so I thought all the psychology classes that I took ended up being really helpful. And yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Gabrielle, do you want to add to that at all?
Oh gosh, unmute. Okay. So for psychology, it did start as like what was available, what's accessible, because kind of like you said, everybody takes it. It was kind of like one that just saturates the schedule. So I think it's like accessibility, and I continued because of the challenge and all that, but also like there's a self-serving purpose to taking it as well, because you just, you learn so much about yourself and the world. Like college does that in general, but even more so in psychology and stuff like that. Because my first love is definitely geology. A shout out to Earth and Planetary Sciences department here. And so I just didn't have access to all those courses though, but um, so yeah, just access it boils down to sometimes.
Awesome. I'd want to just read a question. Oh, Victoria, did you want to ask your question? Victoria just put a question in the chat. You can go ahead, Victoria, if you want to.
Sure. I just wanted to ask, was it intimidating changing your major? And, how far along were you in psychology before you kind of decided that computer science was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I was actually like already 1 year into my psychology degree, and it was pretty intimidating because it was like a struggle for me because I really had to pick one, and so I, and of course, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have much support from, family and whatnot for going into computer science. So it was kind of hard that I was just kind of like, I'm just gonna do it and, not have much support surrounded by it. My family actually told me, they're like, it's too hard, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, yes, I want to do it. Like, come on. So it was pretty intimidating, but I don't regret it. Like, I definitely love it. And I mean, I think that's like what your freshman year though should be about, is kind of like seeing what classes you like and kind of seeing the different, pathways that you can take, and then just just following. But I've known many people that have like changed their major throughout their degree, and it is intimidating and is kind of scary to start over, but I think you'll be easy. I think it's easy enough to just like start, reach out to the people that you're taking new classes with, and just form new groups to like study with, and you'll find a community like for sure at UNM. So even if you do have to change your major, you should be fine. Plus, you'll still have that support from the other people that you met in your first degree. But there's ways and there's support. So yeah, I'd say it's a little intimidating, but it gets better.
Gabrielle, do you want to speak at all on I know you didn't like change quite as dramatically, maybe you kind of did stick with psychology a little bit through,
Oh,
but
gosh.
you
No,
still have some
I
choices
definitely
in there.
changed. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
I definitely changed my major a lot. I can't really remember, it's ages ago. I went in with like criminology or business, and I jumped around a few times. It's not scary so much as you need to make sure you meet the marks on whatever you're switching to. Um, it's like the fun part of being like those first 2 years or whatever, to find out what you're playing with and what you really want to study, like exploratory time, if you will. Just the only thing, it may hold you up a little bit because like for me, taking Earth and Planetary Sciences doesn't really help me on my health path right now, because I needed chemistry, biology, but it still informed my worldview, and it gives me hobbies or passions outside of that. So I think whatever your degree declares that you have to follow, take these courses, 36 hours, whatever, take stuff outside of that too, just for your own joy. And so I don't think it's scary to switch them. It may change your timeline a little bit, but all we got is time.
Okay, Tabitha had a question in chat.
Can everyone hear me? My mic has been okay, awesome. Yeah, so my question was just I feel like so many times we talk about the challenges of being a woman or being feminine in the sciences, and I was wondering if there's ever been a time where you've been like, man, because I was a woman, like it was actually a strength for me. And I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to come by. I'm just trying to reframe for myself.
So yeah, I think I would say for me personally, that is a really great question. So I would say so kind of like, and this is kind of like what I've been doing to try to give back, because I remember being like an undergrad and like really not knowing anybody in my department and feeling lost. And so being, like a woman and being in my department, I have been trying to reach out a lot to the women in my department, just to make them kind of feel comfortable and like know that they have support and they have people to go to within our department. So I've recently actually, I've been working with some undergrads for my research team. And then also I have students that I've tutored over the years that I think they've actually told me that like, they're comfortable coming and talking to me instead of some of the male students or the male professors, which I totally understand because I've been there. And I mean, I had one really awful male professor who, well, another story for another time, which, I took his negativity and made it something positive, and it was like a drive to be like, I'm going to prove him. And so I kind of try to like show that to the other girls. And I think it's helped them too. So not only like help create like a space, but I think being like women, kind of having that relation to them, it also, shows that, it's okay to, ask for help. And like, I always kind of tell them, like, I was in tutoring the whole, my whole undergrad, like I definitely needed help. And that, you can start from, not knowing anything going into college, and you can definitely get to the point, like, graduating and doing your master's and doing that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of like a strength, and that's kind of like been like helpful that I got to have that connection with other women and then kind of create that environment. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Thank you. And I can't take too much space up on here. I'm gender nonconforming, but more feminine. So I think the mentors, like it's beautiful to find mentors in that sphere, um, because you just have such an admiration when you see a strong woman in the, I call it STEAM field. And so just finding those people, for myself, I would have to analyze that more like my own strength. I welcome anyone else in the audience to also answer that, please.
I can just chime in with a little bit on that because it's not so much my femininity so much as my feminism that, and sort of like activist part of me that has shaped a little bit how I read the current literature that is sort of the theoretical backing of my research. And it has totally like opened this can of worms for me because I'm kind of critical of that literature. Not critical of it per se, maybe critical of like there's just not a lot of depth to, so I should back up and say that my research is on female social relationships in chimpanzees from an evolutionary perspective, trying to understand basically the evolution of relationships between women and humans. And so a lot of the psychology and anthropology literature that I look at is both on chimpanzees and human women, and trying to sort of draw this line in our evolutionary history between them. And yeah, I've become kind of critical of the literature that's available currently, in the sense mostly that it's just sparse, but people are willing to draw conclusions based on what's available. And I'm kind of like, this is like totally insufficient. Like we need to, like women are way more varied than what we are painting them as in these basic sentences, I think. Things like that, for example. So in that sense, like I think it has really shaped who I'm becoming as a researcher.
Okay, I want to second that. My answer wasn't good, and I just want to follow up and say that was a great answer.
Gabrielle, didn't you do some research on women's social networks? So that was in part because I was like storming around my department being like, I think we need more of this research, and Siobhan listened, and got into it. So
yes, I did. So now I feel embarrassed about my initial answers. So
no,
I think I was coming from like my perspective of like how I felt in the field, but yeah, definitely everything you said was
totally.
that landed
Totally.
better.
Yeah.
I also,
Actually, I think, by the way, Gabrielle, that you're on a presentation that is in this like symposium that I've organized. I saw your name in there. You'll have to come and listen because it's all about like trying to get more research out into the world on women's behavior. Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to like briefly follow up. Like one thing that Gabrielle said that resonated with me was like I'm gender nonconforming. Although slightly feminine, and I just wanted to also say like one of the things that like that makes me feel right as a gender nonconforming person, and like how that's helped me kind of in science is like there was a lot of self-discovery going on with that really helped me have a lot of confidence in myself, where I was like, look, I've already figured this out about myself, and like that was really hard and nobody was here to help me with this. So like anything the computer science department's going to throw at me is fine.
Peanuts compared to real life problems. I should say problems, real life
real life discoveries.
Discovery, yeah.
But that you saying that just made me think that's one of the strengths of like especially being like a person who has to sort of discover your identity through trial and error, because it is not what was handed to you. You definitely learn a lot and have a lot more self-confidence. I feel like, at least in like the parts of yourself that you've sort of identified it and felt than necessarily you might if that wasn't the case.
I just want to read out Drea's question here. She's asking, she says, my biggest regret was not joining more groups during my undergrad. What advice would you give to your younger selves? And she says that she's in a basement with coworkers that are being loud. So
yeah, so I would say like the I guess like the better or more advice or the best advice I'd give my younger self would be to like not be afraid to like talk to people. Like it did take me a while to start like asking, just like even just saying hi to other students in my classes. Just like kind of have like just try to pretend like you have like this really high confidence level, even though inside you may be freaking out a little bit, because it will lead to possibilities and networking. And eventually it'll get easier, because I remember like my parents used to like be afraid that I would never talk because I was always really quiet, and I still get like that with like big crowds. So I would just say try to just get out of your comfort zone a little bit, just even if it's just like saying hi to one person and just being like, what did you get on this problem, or like what do you think about this, and just kind of push yourself to try to talk to other people, and then try to just join as many student orgs that that you feel like you can relate to, and just really just trying to get out of your comfort zone. That's kind of like the best advice that helped me a lot.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Definitely the student orgs is the big appeal. I think where I'm thinking, I was at a satellite campus for a majority of my studies, and a lot of the people who go to like a satellite campus, it's like the after typical 9-to-5 job, and so it's like a lot of adults. I know we're all adults, but like more like in their career, and they're just adding on, or they have families or what have you. And so it was harder to connect with some adults because they didn't really have adultier adults. Yes, Holly, thank you. And so if they had like families, they weren't like necessarily wanting to do a study group, or at least this is just my experience of what I've encountered. And so it was harder for me to connect initially. It wasn't until I got to main campus to like finish out my degree that like I had access to the clubs and all that. And like sometimes it's not always convenient with the schedule, but generally like these departments are housed in, or the classes for certain degrees are housed in a department, and so more likely you'll find people who are studying the same things as you. And so just I love what you said, Alyshia, about the confidence to go up to people and just like ask about a certain question and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think like advice I would give myself, definitely like try it sooner. Maybe be one of the hang-arounds after class to see, like, talk to the professor, because essentially they would be your peers eventually too. And so if you're just trying to get in a little bit more, or see what other students are doing the hang-around after class, and kind of meet people that way. Yeah, other than that, clubs, they have the draw because like I think a lot of the advertisements I seen like help you with scholarships and stuff like that, but also like getting other people in your network and stuff like that.
Awesome, thank you. My coworkers just left, so that kind of worked out. Um, thank you so much for sharing. I'm sorry I was tardy. I was working and still doing stuff, but thanks for answering, and I'm really glad that I got to join and listen.
Yeah, thanks, Drea. Good question and good answers. I have a question actually for Gabrielle. You mentioned, you were not expecting to take time off in the middle of your degree, but you said something like it had to happen, and it kind of brought me back to a discussion that we were having the last time around that we had a homegrown scientist talk, where we were talking about how it's kind of interesting how unintentionally in this speaker series, we have a lot of people who didn't take a straight line through their undergrad, let alone after the undergrad, but or getting to the undergrad. But I'm just the question that I asked last month was sort of like, do you think that ultimately like that benefited you, or that it's something that is maybe like somehow common, or why does it become common amongst people who later, I don't know, like kind of persist in STEM later on?
Yeah, that's great. And I have noticed that as a trend for the speaker series, for some of us. I think experiences vary and stuff like that, but maybe there's like similar obligations and stuff like that. And for me, it was like that was the one thing I could put on pause. It did benefit me. I would not have been as cool if I finished in the 4 years. So I'm thankful for it. I'm sorry, was there something else that you had that I could expand on?
No, I think that that's a good answer. Yeah.
Can I say something real quick, actually?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't taken any time away from school. I've just been in it straight through, but I've been a tutor, and I honestly would like to say that the students that I've seen that have come back to college and have like taken time off have always been the better students. They already like know how to like, start projects early, and I honestly like admired that, because like looking back at my younger like undergrad self, I wish like I had that drive. And I think you guys have an advantage over a lot of students, even though you may think, you're going in with like you're going into something new again, and it might be like scary. I think you guys actually have more of an advantage, because you guys already know how everything works for the most part. It may be just new material, but you guys always like seem to be like on it and just really know what you're doing. Even though you guys seem kind of like timid about it sometimes. Because like half the time I've had students that, they've left for multiple reasons, and like they're coming back, and they're like, there's all these younger people that are in my classes, and I don't, it's intimidating. And I was like, yeah, but you're like doing really, really good. Like you're definitely like on it a lot more. I would say. So I think it's awesome that people can do that. I don't think I could. I would I would probably struggle. So I give you guys props. I just wanted to say that.
I have one more question for both of you, which is about your relationships with your family, like sort of like as you have gone through your journey, because you both kind of mentioned like earlier on, just like not necessarily, I mean, Alyshia, you gave an example of your family like telling you straight up, like, we don't think that you're making a good choice because we don't think we think it's too hard. And so that's sort of like, non-support in a very specific way, but also like Gabrielle, you just mentioned like not having people around you who have been through these kinds of experiences or think about this as like a good choice career path. And so I'm curious to know how things have kind of like changed for you, or maybe they haven't really changed, but like how are things now that you're kind of like, you're done your bachelor's and you're still thinking of staying in academia, like Alicia's going into a PhD, Gabrielle, you're thinking of applying to, more programs. So yeah, how have things developed over the years?
So I'd say my parents are, I think they know now that like I can do this. They're more supportive now. I think at first I think they've just always been like afraid of me failing, I guess. They grew up really poor here in New Mexico, and so they struggled a lot to get where they are now. And so I think they were just more, it's not that they didn't think I could do it. I think they were just more worried. I don't know. I guess maybe they did think in a way that I could have failed, and then they might have thought I've wasted, years of schooling, going into doing a degree, doing a specific degree, but they're a lot more supportive now that they see me, I guess, doing it. It's still kind of weird. We don't really talk about it, but we don't talk about their lack of support from the beginning. But they're sure proud of me now, I guess. That's what they say. So it's, I guess, gotten better. It's still kind of a weird area, not to, just to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would struggle to answer that. I don't. They weren't supportive of me going to school, so yeah, from there, but to now, they definitely see it brings me joy, and I'm planning on keep going. I think I stood more firm on like, no, this is what I want to do. It was like, in a way, breaking a cycle, if that's like for less of a better term. But yeah, now they see that I keep doing it, so it's not really me looking for approval from them anymore. So I guess I could just leave that there.
Yeah, so do you feel kind of like the mental work that you had to do was earlier on, like you said, like when you like broke that cycle, but now that you've broken it, they're kind of accepting of it?
No, it was later on, I think, not early on, no, because I think it
Oh,
was like,
really?
yeah. So more so like recently, I would say like this is what I'm gonna do. Yeah, because I think when you're entering college, you're like 18, and that's like a lot to put on an 18-year-old, like all these decisions, and then especially navigating it by yourself and stuff. So I think that's still very young, and you want like approval of the people you love and stuff like that. So um, no, that would be more recent, I guess, that I've kind of came over that.
I have a comment if this is a good time. First, I want to say, Ashley, you are ridiculously funny, and I love being on Zooms with you. You always make me laugh. So thank you for being you. And then secondly, I just keep thinking about Tabitha's question about like, I guess I'm thinking in terms of like female/femme, but like being a strength in the sciences, and I don't have a complete thought formulated, but I'll just go with it. It's that there are females and femmes who have been using their voice and staying strong in very difficult situations, and through their efforts collectively have opened up this window of time that we're in right now where we do get to use our voice. And I will acknowledge it's not the same for all of us. I'm a light-skinned mixed race person, and so it's different for me. I'm also petite, and that has something to do with it. But I also, in those moments when I feel an adrenaline rush and I'm like gonna start shaking, those are the moments I'm like, take yourself off mute, do it. Because I think about the other females that are on the call, and I think about the other BIPOC people that are on the call, and I think about the next Zoom meeting. And maybe I'm gonna take the heat and be the bad guy or the confrontational one or the direct one in this moment. But I also think I'm giving part of myself too into that that struggle. And where I find it most is in my research group, which is really interesting. My advisor is a white woman, but she's been advising BIPOC students in her career. And I really respect her and I like her. But there are moments when I push her and she is pretty uncomfortable. And there's that dynamic that I always call her my mom. Even though I'm older than she is, I still feel like she's my mom. And I still get like anxiety before my meetings with her and that sort of thing. And I try to be really honest and give her my feedback about what it's like to be her student, because she'll never know. She went straight all the way through, and now she's tenured faculty, and she's honest. Like, her parents paid for everything. She's never had debt in her life. And so she just can't understand, even though she's a very thoughtful and mindful person. And so, like, I think there are a lot of times when I guess I'll speak for myself. there's a lot of times when I take myself off of mute and it's super uncomfortable and there's silence after I talk. But I also think maybe people are going to hang up that call and think about it. And what I have witnessed in my grad program is that I can go entire Zoom calls now without taking myself off of mute because there are other students taking themselves off of mute, female and female/white, who are saying, wait a second, no, we're changing the norms. Every time somebody says, well, this is the way we do it, it's like, well, actually, we're changing that now. And so the vocabulary, the language, and the approach is changing. And I give the credit to those that used their I'll say femininity, but femaleness, femness, in those moments. And especially for me personally, I also feel that way in listening to Ashley and Gabrielle. Is if you're on a call with me, I especially want to hear what you have to say because your experience is unique, and I can't assume that I know. And so I think that the more of us that are willing to use our position, even though it's hard and stressful, there's plenty of times I hang up Zoom and go lie in my bed in the fetal position, but I still feel like I'm part of something that's happening that's big. And so I love this group, and I love listening to the speakers because I feel like all of us are doing this in our own way in our positions, wherever we may be. And it's just, this series has just been such a gift. I'm getting emotional. It's been such a gift to me, and I feel really connected to all of you. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Holly. I actually wanted to add something to that. I really like how you said just like speaking up about different things. And I think that's actually really good advice for anybody actually in the sciences, is like, if there's something that makes you uncomfortable, or there's honestly like any kind of thing that just kind of either, rubs you the wrong way, you should always speak up about it. Because like you said, like your advisor's not going to know, if you don't tell her. And so like, even if, you're working with somebody like on a project, like if they're not explaining something, like, don't be afraid to be like, can you try explaining it in a different way? And speak up, because this is your, this is your learning environment. You need to, take advantage of it. And I think speaking up is great. And then just also be able to like share everybody's stories is great too. The speaker series is awesome. Thank you guys again for setting this up. But I think that was really great.
Yeah, I'll also say that like one thing that I learned over the course of like my undergrad and master's degree is that the UNM computer science department has some people in it. But the thing is like they do stuff and then no one complains. And so like I started complaining, and like our department chair was like, I didn't know. And I'm like, how did you not know? And so it's important to like get up and say like, hey, this isn't okay. Even if you're not saying it directly to that person, just like going to another, like a lot of my stuff happened when I like went to my advisor about other professors, and I was like, what the hell is this? And then she was like, oh no. But like a lot of sort of progress happened on like calling people out on stuff and holding people accountable in that department. And like some of that behavior has stopped, some of it hasn't. I'm not going to paint a picture of like roses and daisies. Like some of it has not stopped, but some of it has stopped. And so like that's also really important, is like maybe you aren't ready to come off mute with the person, but you can like send an email to the chair of the department, or maybe to your advisor if it's another faculty member, and be like, hey, I'm going to give an example. So like there's a class in the UNM computer science department for undergraduates that's usually taught by like a couple of people. One of them one year was like, I'm going to put a question about sex dungeons in my homework. And I was like, I was sitting and Alyshia was tutoring, and I just kind of lost it. And just kind of sent a hell-raising fire through the computer science department, because I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna report it to the EEO. And then everybody had to report it to the EEO, and like that professor got chewed out. He has not used that question since. And so like you can make meaningful change even if you're not ready to like stand up to the racist professor to his face. And a lot of areas like the EEO at UNM, like confidentiality, like they can't know it was you. And if they try to like find out it was you, like there are anti-retaliation rules, like they can't do anything to you. So that's my soapbox.
Add something to that, Ashley. I would say there's strength in numbers. So reaching out is honestly, and because that's what we did. Like we both put a complaint about that because it was awkward because we would have to, like, we were tutoring and we had to talk about like sex dungeons, and I was like, I felt really uncomfortable. So like I wouldn't even use it. I'd be like, so the thing that I'm about to say, the thing, and like when I was tutoring, and it was awkward. So like it made me uncomfortable, it made the students uncomfortable. It was just, so strength in numbers helps a lot. So like if you feel like something is, just makes you uncomfortable, is not going, something that's not right, reach out to somebody that you trust. And then there's, like I said, there's strength in numbers. You can definitely get it taken care of. It helps when you have that support. So just reach out, because most likely if it makes you uncomfortable, it's probably making somebody else uncomfortable. So there's strength in numbers to getting that kind of resolved and fixed. Tabitha, sorry, I think I might have cut you off. Were you about to say something?
It was just very similar to what you're saying, is the power in like the collective. And then also I was going to ask you if you've read Audre Lorde's Transformation of Language into Action, or I'm sorry, I'm butchering it.
I haven't, but if you want to put another book on my reading list, I'm real hype about it.
Can you put it in the chat?
It's actually, it's an essay by Audre Lorde, and it speaks very much to what Holly was saying about just say it afraid, and even if you're shaking, the power in that. Sorry, I thought I had the link, but I do have the link. I just posted the title, but I'll post the link right now.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this conversation, Holly, and everyone else who's contributing. I think that's beautiful, strength in numbers, but sometimes like the knee-jerk reactions there too. And for me, when I now that we're in Zoom meetings, I'll use that example. And it could be in a lecture hall too. Sometimes something is said and it just doesn't feel right to you. Maybe you can't articulate it in that moment. But what I'm doing now is saying, I don't know why, but that doesn't resonate with me, and I don't like that. I can't explain it right now, but I'll come back to you. Like, I'll make it known, but it's just kind of like blurting it, like, I don't like that, but I can't explain why. And then kind of like circle back around to it. Or maybe someone else who does have the words for it, who's also feeling it, may speak up. So yeah, I'm just making that a habit now, because I've been in a room too many times where I'm like, I don't know how to articulate that. I didn't like that, but I don't know how to say it. So now I'll just say it and figure it out along the way, and maybe someone else will help me. So that's my piece on that.
That is really good advice. I really like that. It's always so hard to find the words, I find personally. And, I'm kind of in a place where I want to say something more often, but, on top of being intimidated, I'm just like, I don't even know what to say right now. So that's really good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not always very quick to it. So it just helps to like, I don't like that, but I can't explain it. And so then you could work it out.
I actually kind of learned this from, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh, okay. Oh, I was just gonna say what I feel like I struggle with a lot is it takes a lot for me to get the courage to like unmute. So I'm still very new to Zoom. I used it for the series. I think that was like my second time ever using Zoom, and right now this is probably my fourth or fifth. And I still feel like I have to like get the courage, like, okay, I'm gonna unmute me and I'm gonna say something, but then sometimes it like goes too quickly, and then there's like always somebody that like talks really fast and like gets to the point, and then I'm just like left there like, okay, now I'm awkward. And then sometimes they'll say like, you unmuted, were you gonna say something? And I was like, oh, I completely forgot, and now I don't have the courage. So that's something I also have to work on.
Tabitha, do you want to say something now?
To what Drea was saying, that that brings up for me just like with we know the current hegemony or like white supremacy, like that's one of the ways to make you feel guilty, like just that speed of things happening, that doesn't mean that you're less intelligent. And as you know, like that can be your opportunity to maybe say like, I do have something to say, but I'll say it later, or I just need a minute to collect my thoughts. And I feel like I'm saying all these things because it's things that I'm practicing and trying to work on, because even though I'm outspoken in this setting, in so many settings, now it was really something that I struggled with. And the second thing I was gonna say is with, I'm sorry, I forgot it, and I'll say it at another time when I have time to collect myself. See, I'm practicing right now. Okay, that's it.
I will just like give a quick tip as somebody who like has this happen a surprising amount. Maybe you don't feel like that when you hear me talk, but I often forget what I'm gonna say in meetings. And so I'll just have a little like notepad open on my computer. And then when I have a thought, I'll write it down to remind me, so that when it becomes my turn, I can like look at it real quick and like see what I was like thinking. Because I too, like, I work in a field with a bunch of people who are like going 90 miles an hour, and like it takes me time to think about the things that I work on. And so even though like I'm an expert in blockchain, like people will be going on and on and on and on and on, and I'll just like sit there and be like, oh no. And so like I have to write down like what I want to say. So I find that really useful. I don't know if that's something that would help those who are trying to learn how to do that more, but I thought it would be nice to share.
I think that's great. Ashley, I was just about to say that. And I think Gabrielle had her notebook too. I have like Post-it notes everywhere, and I'll do the exact same thing. And I think that helps a lot, because just like what Ashley says, it's just like people will just keep going. And I yeah, sometimes I can't follow either. And I'm just like, wait, hold on. So I think that's definitely a good point.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of Zoom, drop it in the chat. Like, I think that's like huge now. So I'm so thankful for that, because like definitely always like write my notes, especially in-person meetings and whatnot. But now during the chat, back to you, Drea, that's like an advantage, I think. Like if you have something and it's like multiple people sharing and collaborating, it's like put it in the chat and then circle back around. That's always an option too. And I think that works really well on Zoom, thankfully.
Also have the confidence of a mediocre white dude. Like he would interrupt the meeting to ask a question. And if
Actually,
he's going to interrupt the meeting,
I used
you
to like
interrupt it.
live by that, and I had forgotten it, and I remembered it today. So it is so funny that you're saying that. I'm giving this talk for this. I've organized this symposium that I was mentioning that Gabrielle is also in, and I have to give like the introduction talk, and I'm really nervous for it. And I was thinking of that today, like that inspired me to be like, you can do it. I mean, it's funny because like I kind of wish that it was like, you know, have the confidence of a really powerful STEM woman, but that doesn't make me laugh as much, right?
It's not as funny. And also like you should have more confidence than he does, because you definitely worked harder to get to where you are. But you maybe don't, because you're not socialized to have confidence, because that's a bad thing.
Yeah, there's just something about that saying that's like, you know, the mediocre white male who doesn't really know what he's talking about, and yet, you know, comes off with confidence.
But like he's here.
You know, why not just like, I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about, but just go like that, you know, ride it.
They're not gonna know. You're fancy. You got a bunch of education. They're just gonna be like, man, look at this lady. She knows what she's talking about chimpanzees. I don't actually know what you're talking about, but
the problem, I have to talk about humans.
They're gonna think you know what you're talking about there too.
Yeah. I realized that we just lost Tabitha. I don't know if she had to drop out for something, but I guess she didn't remember her thought in time. But I will wrap up. I don't even know how to like, summarize everything that, we get at in these talks, but I do want to just say, like, I feel so privileged to be able to listen to you guys and to be in the same Zoom room as you, and to hear your perspectives. And I'm very grateful for you coming and being willing to share your stories in this space. But, as Holly said today, I want to add to that, like, thank you for being yourselves in those other spaces where not just this safe space, it does make a big difference. So, thank you for keeping it up. Yeah.
Thanks for setting it up, Stephanie. I love getting to tell people that I was paid to participate in this because no one else is offering. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you both. You guys are awesome. This is
My pleasure. It really, literally just, it's my pleasure. It's my privilege.
We were really excited to put this on. Like, Stephanie sent me an email and I was like, that's the best idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, I hope that we can make it happen again next year. Actually, hang on, I'm going to stop recording for right now.